Welcome, everyone. I'm Rachel Stern, Director and CEO of the Fritz Sascha Society for Persecuted, Ostracized, and Banned Art, based in New York. We research, discuss, publish, and exhibit artists whose life and work were affected by the German Nazi regime between 1933 and 1945. With this work, we commemorate their lives and achievements. All our virtual programs are free of charge. Your support makes our work possible. Thank you. Those of you who were here earlier could see some of the preparation that happens before an event officially starts. Today, I'm really excited and honored to introduce to you Dr. Eva Sabrina Atlan, who is the Deputy Director of the Jewish Museum Frankfurt. Previously, she was Curator for Art and Judaica and then Head of Collections. She's Curator of the exhibition Back into the Light, 4 women artists, their works, their paths. After studying art history, classical archaeology, and Roman studies in Frankfurt am Main, she spent a research stay in Boston, USA, followed by her doctorate at the Johann Wolfgang Goethe University in 1997 on Samuel Bach. Work monograph from 1945 to 1990. In addition to the new permanent exhibition area Splendor of the Commandment, she's responsible for numerous exhibitions and publications, including as co-editor of Eternal Light, Samuel Bach, Childhood in the Shadow of the Holocaust, in 1996, Access to Israel, 2 volumes, 2008, and 1938, Artist Politics in 2013. And as the author and co-editor of The Feminine Side of God, Art and Ritual in 2020. And Back into the Light, 4 women artists, their works, their paths in 2022. At the end of today's event, there will be time for Q&A, so please post your questions. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, hello and good evening. For me, it's good evening, sorry. It's 6 o'clock in the evening in Germany. I would like to present you 4 women artists who worked in Frankfurt in the 20s. The idea of the exhibition, Back into the Light, 4 women artists, their works, their paths, initially came up years ago of researchers into the life and work of the expressionist artist Rosy Lilienfeld. Her oeuvre is now being shown in our exhibition for the first time, and it shows also in all the many facets of her work. And it's the first time also it's granted also recognition and acclaim she enjoyed in her own days and following her forced immigration in 1939 from Germany. The other artist, the second artist, which is shown here in the exhibition, and the works we have in our collection is Erna Pinner, an illustrator and author. And she was a contemporary here in Frankfurt from Rosy Lilienfeld. We have in our collection over 400 pieces of art from Erna Pinner, thanks of a gift from the Pierce family of Erna Pinner, we received in 2014. The other 2 artists, Ruth Cahn and Amalie Seckbach, are a coincidence, a fortunate coincidence that we found them in an article of an art historian, Sascha Schwabacher, 1935, when she wrote in the Israelitisches Gemeindeblatt an article remembering how she visited the studios of 4 women artists in Frankfurt. There I came upon with this article about these 2 artists, Amalie Seckbach and Ruth Cahn. And the idea came up that an exhibition should be done about these 4 women artists who lived in the same city in the times of the 1920s and 30s and were really recognized in the artworks they did, and mainly forgotten after the war. The exhibition locates the role the places and the people played in the 20s and the 30s in Frankfurt, and what they meant for women artists. In the exhibition, we show 4 rooms, and especially for every individual, for every artist, a room like a studio, an artist studio. So the visitor can enter into the life and works of the women artists. But we show also in the exhibition rupture, the aftermath, after the should it be the emigration of 2 artists, or the fled of one of the artists, or the deportation of the 4th artist. The whole exhibition has also a contemporary critical dialogue from a contemporary artist, Eliana Renner, in a 5th room. So I will show now my presentation. Rosy Lilienfeld is an artist, as I already told, that is represented in the collection of the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt with now nearly 200 drawings. But the biography of this woman artist is really with white holes, I can say. We even don't have a photograph of this woman. So what I show here on the first page is a self-portrait of the artist. So who was this artist, this woman artist? I would like to begin with a quotation from this article I already talked about, from Sascha Schwabacher from 1935. Rosy Lilienfeld lived in a particular world. In reality, she lived almost entirely in Frankfurt, the city where she was born, but in her unreal life in art, she lived in the north and south, in heaven and hell, in the infinite. Rosy Lilienfeld was born in Frankfurt in 1896. What we know about her life is that she lived in Frankfurt, in the city, in the district of the West End, and that she began to rent a studio, an art studio, in 1918 in the Städel Kunstinstitut, this Academy of Art in Frankfurt. Her teacher was Ugi Battenberg. Ugi Battenberg is perhaps known by some of you as being the friend of Max Beckmann. What I show here, the first page was also a self-portrait, and here is again a self-portrait of the early years from 1922. We have several portraits of women, and sometimes we don't really know if it's her, but here it's assumingly this woman smoking a pipe from 1923 is assumingly also Rosy Lilienfeld. What we have in the exhibition, and which is represented in our collection, are different types of drawings and even etches. What you see here is a view on house facades, where we presume is a view from her studio in the Academy of Art. In the middle of the 20s, she drew a lot of drawings showing the cityscapes. And there I show you on the right side a drawing from Rosy Lilienfeld, which is showing really typical view on Frankfurt with the iron footbridge on the River of Main, and on the right side you see some little bit of the cathedral. There, on the left side, you see a drawing from 23 from Max Beckmann, showing similarly view on the city. And this is all really, really typical in these early 20s, when Lilienfeld drew a lot of cityscapes, that she was really inspired by Max Beckmann. But what we have, the only photograph we have is a photograph showing the studio of Rosy Lilienfeld. I presume that it is from the 20s to 35. We don't really know because it wasn't dated. But what you see on this photograph, that Rosy Lilienfeld painted also old paintings. And she also herself, we have some written testimonies from herself, where she writes that she is a drawer, a painter, and a sculptor. No paintings, old paintings, no sculptures are known today. We have in the exhibition also really early works from her, and works that are before she became an expressionist artist. Here you see an etch at Dry Point from 1923, showing a Madonna, and she called it the Madonna of the Sleep. And it is showing that she was also at the beginning of the 20s inspired by every art historian pictures and motifs and themes around her, and from the Museum of the Städte, supposedly. Here, but here I couldn't identify the precise picture she was inspired from. What is also really interesting, and we found those this etching, it's not long ago that the museum acquired this etching. It's an etching from 1923 also, and it's called A Self-Portrait in Hospital Bed. And this is relating to the biography of the artist. Because with all the research that's done since 2009, I'm researching on this artist. This artist had from the 20s until the mid-30s, in different time periods, she was in psychiatric hospitals, and she lived under depressions sometimes, and was so in different periods in hospital. And what she did, she draw a different kind of drawings showing herself in this condition, but what we find out also are drawings which looks like nightmares. And in the course of the preparation of the exhibition, we found one drawing on the right side in this presentation. You see on the right side the picture, which was titled "Illustration of an own novel," and it was called "The Empire Without Daytime." And what I presume, as it was also dated 1928, I found in the documents in the archives that this was the year where she tried to commit suicide. And it's interesting that this own novel is really relating about her psychic and mental health. But still, it is from artistically really impressive, and really also relying on the early expressionists of the 1915s, remembering the apocalyptic visions. What is also interesting with Rosy Lilienfeld is that in the beginning of the 1930s and also in the 1920s, end of the 1920s, she began to create illustration inspired by literal literature. So one of the first one I found is illustration inspired by Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis from 1912. And I show you here a drawing, a charcoal drawing from 1931. But the literature inspiration is just one period. When in the 30s also she began to dig deep into Hasidic legends. And one of the most important, where she was really focusing on and working obsessively, was the legend of the Baal Shem, and inspired from Martin Buber's book. And so what we can show in the exhibition is not only the drawings that were published, the only illustration from Rosy Lilienfeld that were published 1935 in a book, but we can show also the drawings that weren't published, and she tried to publish this second cycle. So what you see here are two drawings from the second cycle of the pictures of the Baal Shem. And we can say that we have the whole drawings from the first and the second cycle. And we know that she planned also to publish the second cycle and the third cycle. But the drawings of the third cycle are not known where they are. What is very important here for to say is also that Rosy Lilienfeld got in touch personally with Martin Buber, trying to find help to publish her illustrations. So we show also in the exhibition 2 letters she wrote to Martin Buber. But what is also really important and not also surprising is that Rosy Lilienfeld is one of the rare woman artists of the 30s that who really got into the subject of the Hasidic legends, a subject that was mainly around male artists. And what is also really interesting with the drawings of the Baal Shem subject that the Rosy Lilienfeld illustrated, she put them in a contemporary context of her city, Frankfurt. So you see on the left side a picture showing the conversation, the title of the conversation, where you see a shepherd standing, and in the background we could identify the space which is nearby the river bank. On the right side, you see an illustration, not from the Baal Shem, but from the other important Messianic person of the Sabbath Tzvi, where she is showing the Jews gathering on the Römerberg, the place which is the most important center, because also already in the 30s there was the city hall. The second artist, which we show in the exhibition, is the artist Amalie Seckbach. This artist is even less known in days today, with works from her Frankfurt period nearly are very rare, and it's difficult to really show how her artistic evolution was. But what is really surprising, finding out articles, because in the course of our preparation of the exhibition, and on this artist, the co-curator Annika Friedman worked, as in this exhibition we were 3 curators, found out a lot of personal writings and through the contact to the family who today lives in Australia. Amalie Seckbach came just was not born in Frankfurt, but was born in a city nearly 40 kilometers north of Frankfurt, and came as an adult in beginning of the 20th century to Frankfurt, where she got married to an architect. So she was born Amalie Buch, and then married Max Seckbach, an architect. And only when her husband died, she found in 1922, several years later, she found a way to the arts. And first, she was known as a collector because she was getting into the University of Frankfurt, who created an institute for Chinese and Japanese woodcuts and art. So she got really interested in this Asiatic art and managed to collect high artistically artworks from Chinese artists and Japanese artists of the 17th and 18th century. And this collection was really first known as the Seckbach collection and shown in museums exhibitions. And then she kind of find out the motivation to show with her art collection also her own artistic sculptures, small faces, portraits, like I show here. What it was very important for her development of her artistic development was that she came in the 30s to draw, and with her drawings, she really got also in touch with James Ensor. So the contact when she traveled the first time, end of the 20s to Belgium, she met James Ensor, who was really amazed by her sculptures and wanted to exhibit his paintings with her sculptures. And then she kindly got into also his paintings, and this is why I show on the left side a drawing from 1933 and a painting from James Ensor. So this mask and portraits or visions of the masses is a very typical and reminds the motifs and themes from James Ensor. What is really amazing with Amalie Seckbach is that she really first got into the art world, and already in 1936 she had also one of the very international exhibition of one of her works was shown in the Art Institute of Chicago, and where she was the only German Jewish woman artist shown over there in this exhibition. I would like to show you also the drawings she did, which were really also inspired by the Japanese and Chinese art. Where here you see these flowers on the left side. On the paper she chose was a China paper, and even the China paper, this thin paper, she used to use really sometimes also oil painting to put on it. What I show you here are two watercolors, but in the exhibition we have also on this same paper the material of oil that she uses. what is interesting is that also here in the paintings, like in the sculptures, the persons she's showing are not individuals. She tried to show a woman here faces mixed in the foliage of the plants and flowers, and it's getting a really two-dimensional impression, which is also reminding the Asiatic art. Amalie Seckbach, who was in 1939 already thinking if she had to leave Germany because of the situation, she didn't really try only in 1940 when it was already too late. She tried to sell through her brothers. One brother emigrated to try to sell her collection to get money to get out of Germany, but it was in vain. Because in 1942 she was deported to Theresienstadt with a lot of old people with the so-called old transport. What I show you here and what we show also in the exhibition is that what I told you, that we show the studios in Frankfurt of the artists, but we show also the way out of Frankfurt. And in the space we show some drawings that Amalie Seckbach did draw in Theresienstadt, where she really survived 2 years. And in these 2 years, she tried to draw and to show visions that was really escapes in fantasy. And I chose this drawing, again, a woman through foliage and flowers. But also what you see here, and that's why I chose this drawing, is not only she tried to take her signature like a stamp here, where you see the AM and SE for Amalie Seckbach, and again writing her name on the right bottom, but she's also writing the where she is, Theresienstadt, and also the date. In some drawings, she's also writing the day and the months and the year, and it's kind of showing that it's another day that she survived. The third artist is Ruth Cahn, also from the same, nearly same generation than Amalie Seckbach. Ruth Cahn was born in Frankfurt, and her family roots are going back until the 16th century. Ruth Cahn's education of art is not really given with all informations in the biography, but we know that in the beginning of the 20th century, she went to Munich and got education, art education, in this private courses, and really close to the 1910s, years before World War I, she went to Paris, and there she lived in the quarter of Montparnasse, the artist quarter in Paris, where she met very important artists like Cézanne, Marie Laurencin, Otto Fries, and these artists were really had an impact on her art. What you see here from 1924, as she returned to Germany when World War I started, you see here really looking very full painting. It is a watercolor, especially big watercolor, which shows the botanical garden, a view on the botanical garden from Frankfurt. This botanical garden will be one of her favorite places in Frankfurt. What is important with Ruth Cahn's art is to say that she was really renowned during her time. We found a lot of articles naming her beside really renowned artists. And she had her first solo exhibition in the renowned gallery in Barcelona, in the Galeries Dalmau, in 1929, where this gallery was renowned to have shown the young Miro and Spanish artists like also Picasso. We don't have, with the first time in our exhibition, we put together all the paintings that are not known to be existing today, because a lot of paintings were destroyed first during the Shoah in Frankfurt, but also when she fled first to Chile and then to Spain. So there are not many paintings today that we can show, but those we are showing in the exhibition the first time are all together. So we show here a woman in a purple dress painting that shows that this should have been done in Paris when she, it's nearly sure that she met there Marie Laurencin. Marie Laurencin, who was also visiting sometimes Frankfurt and was also exhibited in the galleries in Frankfurt. Another portrait is shown here, which is from the style different, but really shows also the inspiration from Cézanne. We don't, as I told you, we cannot really date these paintings, but from the style that she's showing from the 20s until the 30s, it really showing how she was inspired by the contemporary artists. This painting with this deconstruction of the faces of the woman is again showing that even if she's evolving her style, she always takes a woman as portrait as a motive. Ruth Cahn in 1935, as her two brothers already emigrated, one to Chile, the other one to Spain, decided to leave also Frankfurt. She goes to Chile, but this will be the last time that she will have painted, as the only letter we also can show in the exhibition shows that she never painted again. So this artist, who was called during her high peak of career, the wild beast, the fool, will really stop painting and create art from 1935. So now the fourth artist is Erna Pinner, an artist who is from the four artists I show, the one who is nearly known today, as in the beginning of the 1990s, she had an exhibition in the August Macke House in Bonn. So this artist is really characteristic for the woman, the new woman of the 1920s. So who was Erna Pinner? I would like, before showing her her works, I wanted to show her how she lived in the 20s. She was traveling around the world. So I show here 3 photographs showing her in Egypt in 1928. So this is a self-portrait for 1927. She was, this is also showing already that she is a very powerful woman, knowing what she wants and also doing it. She, with the age of 17 already, she began to learn, study art at the Academy of Art in Frankfurt at the Städel Kunstinstitut. And really early, she went already in 1908, she was 18 years old, she went to Berlin to learn with Lovis Corinth the art. Lovis Corinth was a friend of her father, and her father was a great favorite of Lovis Corinth's art and also from other contemporary artists, and had a large collection. Erna Pinner was known as really early as an illustrator for animal drawings. From 1916, before she traveled, she was already known for her drawings, and what you see here is a colored woodcut from the 1920s. She was fascinated by animals, and this was also the motif that was will be until the end of her career. But also at the beginning, she painted also oil paintings, which are not really known today, and we don't know if they survived the World War II. As when she left Germany in 1935, she had to leave behind her oil paintings. She couldn't just take her paper works. So I showed you here this illustration of a dog in a book, because from 1916 on, she met Casimir Edschmidt, an author, and he was in the Darmstadt secession, and with him until the early 30s, she will form a dream team of the 1920s. So she will be a private and a professional team, and traveling together and working together and illustrating his books with her animals drawings, and also with landscapes from these countries they will visit. So I show you here one example of this drawing of animals that she did in the 20s and early 30s. This rhinoceros. What you see here are also annotation in 5 centimeters large, that are information how big this animal drawing will be printed in the book. In the 20s, end of the 20s, she will, and beginning of the 30s, she will also publish own books where she will be the illustrator and the author. The one is called A Woman in Greece, and the other one is A Travel Around the World. These books are like the travel books and writings that are really used to the 1920s. So I show you also here one of the drawing showing a cityscape. What is really characteristic of her drawings are these small lines and really less paint and colors, and just lines forming the cityscapes or animals or figures that she's drawing. So I want to show you also she's drawing persons, and what is really characteristic in her drawings is not only that the silhouettes are creating really with very less lines, already the impression of speed and action in the drawings which will be really characteristic for her work. So this is a drawing showing two women on water skiing in Venice in 1928 and was 31 at this time, because it was also printed in the book I Travel Around the World. What I show you also here are the drawings, examples of drawings from her travels. So here also annotated that it was drawn in Mozambique. A woman reclining, and the title is With a Red Clothes. But also those portray very individual and really much more elaborated portrait exist also from the hand of Erna Pinner. They were printed in her books, and I found them really interesting, as they are not typical for her kind of work. And mainly these drawings show women with their child. Erna Pinner also emigrated 1935, like Ruth Cahn. She decided to leave Frankfurt, decided by pressure to leave Frankfurt and go to London. In London, she had family, a cousin. So she decided to go over there in 35. Her mother follows up her in 39. Her father was already dead by that time. Her partner, the author and artist Casimir Edschmidt, who formed with her the dream team of the 20s, decided to stay in Germany. Erna Pinner had also the chance also to speak already English when she came to London. She spoke French and English. So this was a very good situation for her to get into the work life in London. She goes to Hampstead, where she takes one apartment in a newly built house, and will live over there until her death in 1987. I show you here one of the first book from 1936. She already, as an illustrator, published. It's the Animal Favorite, a book for children to learn about animals. And it was written by the so-called zoo man, Seth Smith. And like you see here, her name is also on the cover. It is, for her, it was very important when she came to London to get in touch with the director of the London Zoo, and who get her also connections to zoologists and biologists, authors for she could illustrate their books, which was not, of course, so easy, because in the beginning of her immigration in the 30s, in the late 30s, and also during the war, the publishing of books was, of course, not so easy, and she lived, or tried to live, from creating illustration for postcards with illustration of different animals and greeting cards. But here the book, I just wanted to show you also how it looks inside. So it was not just an illustration in the text, but she had also the full page to show here, for example, the elephant. On the left side here, I show you a drawing she took with her from Germany, a drawing from the 20s, where you see that the style is even a little bit changing, but it's still inspired by her drawings from Germany. What you see here are drawings a little bit later, when in the here from the end of the 40s, mid 40s, after war drawings for books that she illustrated and wrote also the texts, because she published in the beginning of the 50s. She published 2 books where she illustrated and wrote the text, like The Purest Creations and The Wonder of the Animal World. So I show you here 2 examples how the drawing developed. So it is a naturalistic drawing, but also here the animals are in action and they show really a natural behavior. And this is also showing that her looking at the animals, how they behave, and the studying of animals was something that she did not only before immigration, but this was still a very center and focus on her work, that she was really looking at the animals and their behaviors. And in London, of course, she wasn't able anymore to travel like she did in the 20s, but she went to zoos and get there and looked there at the animals. So I thank you, and I'm looking forward for your question. I show you here a view into the exhibition, so you have an impression how we show the works of these women artists, and so you can hopefully look at this exhibition, and I invite you to come and look the exhibition in Frankfurt. But you can look on our website dates for Zoom guided tours, even in English, and you can look at the dates and information on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eva. This is a terrific exhibition, and I hope that I can still see it. It will be up until April
17, yes.
Yes.
And we try to prolong it. I'm nearly positive that it will be prolonged until end of May, but we will announce it officially.
Fabulous.
Shortly.
Okay, fabulous. I'm really very impressed how you discover these artists and bring them together. And we right away have a few questions, and I ask everyone to please type your questions. Susan is asking whether these 4 women artists that you just portrayed, whether they knew each other.
That's a question that is often asked, and we don't really know, but we can say that they knew about each other because they were in the newspapers in Frankfurt in that time. So there were articles about them, there were exhibitions about them in the 20s. So then I suppose that they knew each other, but they were very different from the circles they moved. So and from the age also. So Rosy Lilienfeld and Erna Pinner were similarly aged, and Amalie Seckbach and Ruth Cahn were a generation older. And it is it can be. We found in all the researches, we found in the Israelitische Gemeindeblatt also from this mid-30s, a page where postcards were announced to be, you can buy this postcard, and the money will get to the artists, and there were 4 motifs of all the 4 artists. So it is perhaps that they I think I would more say that they knew about each other and that they knew personally each other.
Yeah, and being women, they kind of really were fighting the same fight in this male dominated artwork work.
Yes, and what is also interesting that Rosy Lilienfeld and Ruth Cahn, they had a studio in the Art Institute, in the Städtische Kunstinstitut, and there we find also a letter where they reclaiming that the money for the heating was too high, and there's a signature of Ruth Cahn and Rosy Lilienfeld with other artists in these studios reclaiming it. Yeah. So that is perhaps that they knew each other. I would say they knew about it.
Yeah. So Rose is asking, with the exception of the first of all, she says a wonderful talk, and I can second that.
Thank you very much.
With the exception of the few artists who worked with these women, how accepted were these 4 women by male contemporaries? How did the Jewish community look at their behavior and their artwork?
What is really interesting is that they were acclaimed by a lot. We found out a lot of articles, historical articles in journals and newspapers from the time. We have in the exhibition made a newspaper where the visitor can look at these articles. And we found out that she was really acclaimed, and even from the Jewish community, we found out an article telling, especially about Rosy Lilienfeld, who was into really this Jewish traditional, and she made also biblical illustration, not only Hasidic inspiration from Baal Shem and these messianic visions. But she was really acclaimed also there. So she was also related as being, beside, I found an article from Margot Ries where she was reclaimed being the expressionist artist beside Jakob Steinhardt and Ludwig Meitner. So she was in the range of these male artists. So I think that they were really, nevertheless, it is really a difficult situation in that time for women artists.
Yeah, and Susan asked right away whether, she says that some of Lilienfeld's work has the feel of Chagall, and she wonders if she knew of his work, and is also asking what was the name of the show at the Art Institute in Chicago that included a piece by Seckbach. That's
okay. So I will first of all answer the first question about Chagall or what she knew. We found out in all the documents when Lilienfeld left Germany in 1939, she had to do a big list of all the items she's taken with her. It was a list of over 500 items, and these items were personal things, were artworks, and there were books. And there were a lot of books in different languages, so we presume that she's read in Italian and in French and in English. And we found out also that she had a lot of books, not only about art, but also about natural history and so on, and religion. So I presume that she knew Chagall's work. But I never thought about it, so thank you very much for this hint. I never made this connection. And for the exhibition in the Art Institute, I just have to check my papers, because as I tell you, this was not the artist I focused on my researches, just reporting it. As I said, it was in 1936, and just have to check if it doesn't take too much. I had it here. So it was one work. I can tell you the title of the work she showed there. It was a gouache with the title "The Saint in Her Chester," and it was exhibited 1936 with other works from Paul Klee, Max Pechstein, Otto Dix, and Emil Nolde. We have in our catalog and in the exhibition, we have a photograph of this hint on the Art Institute in Chicago of this exhibition. So I hope this answers the question.
Of course, yeah, thank you. So Jelena is asking, did these artists saw themselves as Jewish or international modernist pan-European artists? And did it change after World War II for those who survived?
So I could say that, first of all, I would begin with Rosy Lilienfeld, as we found also a text where she's writing about her and her art. I would say that she was really in this Jewish subject and dealing with finding out what is the sense of life and how to find it in the legends of the Hasidic God to roots. I can say to find out. So I would say that she is really thinking about this the subject of Jewishness, which wouldn't mean about religious Jewishness. I don't think that it was in this way. Erna Pinner is interesting as she was a member of the Jewish community. She was also in touch with rabbis from Frankfurt. She collaborated 2 times. In one time, we've shown in the exhibition also a Hebrew book for children to learn Hebrew. So there was a text and the illustration from Erna Pinner for children. So I think this is so. It must be said that in the 20s, the artists, the Jewish artists, we have a lot of artists here in Frankfurt, like Jakob Nussbaum. They had this being with this different kind of cycles. I would say the cycles of being in the Bnei Loge member, but also being in the Künstlerhilfe, which will be the artist help organization. So it would be a different kind of social cycles moving. And this is, I would say, very important to say. And the galleries, like the galleries in Frankfurt, there were a lot of Jewish galleries also. So the whole social cycles, I would say, are very, very mixed, and so I would say that Erna Pinner moved in these cycles. About Amalie Seckbach, it's difficult to say, as she lived a very very focused on her art since she was 50. She was we call it in the exhibitions a belated artist. So she came to art really after she became a widow, and perhaps was able first in her life to do what she wanted to do. So and there she focused really, and this is what she focused until the end of her life, even in Theresienstadt. And Ruth Cahn, she came from a really old Jewish family, born in Frankfurt, and getting the roots back to the Judengasse. But she lived a really also a life without getting married. This was a way to do what you want in these times, to work as to have a profession, a profession, even an artist profession. So, and there's not so much left about her as a person with Ruth Cahn. So it's difficult to say.
Yeah. So 2 questions really that are more general. somebody's asking, how was Amalie Seckbach able to draw in Theresienstadt? How did her work survive? And I think that leads to the second larger questions. You said that most works were destroyed in the Shoah, especially of Ruth Cahn. How were they destroyed? Were they consciously destroyed by the Nazis? Were they like by bombings, or what was the overall story?
So I will first answer the first question with Amalie Seckbach and her drawings from Theresienstadt. Theresienstadt was a special ghetto or concentration camp where at first a person could take maximum 50 kilos with them when they were deported and leave them by them. So they didn't have to give it away. And this was to give them the impression that they are brought to somewhere where there will be like in a retired home, because it was called first of all it was called the ghetto for the older people. Mm-hmm. So Amalie Seckbach, when she was taken to Theresienstadt, she took also papers and drawing materials with her. And in Theresienstadt also she tried to draw with every kind of material. She took also from the garbages from the kitchen paper. She took also papers which were in this camp. She tried to gather all this, and in Theresienstadt it's also known that there were some artists over there, and also they took material with them, and they were gathered in places where other artists can get material. So it was trying to give the impression that this will be a place where cultural life can survive and people can do. And nevertheless, people starved and couldn't died when they weren't deported to Auschwitz. They died over there, even mainly because they were old when they came over there. So that's what's happened also to Amalie Seckbach. And Sascha Schwabacher, the art historian I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, was also taken to Theresienstadt, and she met over there Amalie Seckbach, but Sascha Schwabacher died much earlier than Amalie Seckbach.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
And the painting from Ruth Cahn, I'm sorry, I wanted to answer also. Of course, Ruth Cahn, as she first went to Chile, and then when she had two brothers. It's one who emigrated to Chile in 1935. She went with him to Chile, also to Santiago de Chile. We presume that she took paintings with her. And when he died in the beginning of the 1950s, she emigrated to Spain, to Barcelona, to the other brother. And in the 1930s, there was a civil war in Spain. And this was also the time where mainly a great part of the collection of Ruth Cahn, of her paintings, were destroyed also. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning of the 1960s, when she decided, really where she was already 80 years old, she decided to get back to Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what she, we presume that with a part of her paintings, she traveled back to Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. What we know is that in the 1980s, Ruth Cahn died in Frankfurt in 1966 and was buried on the Jewish cemetery. In the 1980s, some paintings from her, also the paintings, some of the paintings I showed, were in an auction in Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. So it is presumed that these paintings came from her collection or survived the Second World War in Frankfurt. We don't know. it's a big question mark about what happened to her work. But it's a pity to know that we're showing 5 paintings in the exhibition. To know that from all these articles we found, we know that she was very productive also.
Do we know why she stopped painting? What did she do in Chile once she left?
Yes, this was really, we have one letter where she writes that since she came to Chile, she didn't took a pencil or a pen to draw, to create art. She wasn't emotionally, or how you, yes, you can say, not, it was not possible for her anymore to create art. She said the people in Chile, she couldn't get into the life in Chile, and she didn't even come, because in Santiago de Chile there were also other immigrated artists, but she didn't get in touch with them. For her, this was a real break when she left Frankfurt to go to Santiago de Chile.
Right. Thank you. We already went over time, so I have one more question. There are so many other questions that we can't answer, and it's of course this is a very complex theme. Talking about 4 women artists, which is,
yes,
in 1 hour is hard to accomplish. So Naomi Atlani is saying, thank you so much for this most informative talk. I'm just wondering if this is the Jewish Museum which was under restoration, or is it the one adjacent to the old cemetery? On a personal level, I'm wondering if Dr. Atlan is the same as Sabrina Atlan, daughter of Lucien, on our family tree.
I'm not the daughter of Lucien. No, the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt has 2 spaces. The Jewish Museum, which was under construction 5 years, and where we show the exhibition now in the new space. And there is the Museum Judengasse, which is adjacent to the cemetery, which is also a space from the Jewish Museum, which is called Museum Judengasse because it's of the former Judengasse, and it has also an exhibition space. So yes, we are the Jewish Museum, which reopened in 2020 after 5 years of construction.
Yes, and with a very new permanent exhibition, and
yes.
I can very much just recommend everyone to come to your museum and see it. It's really spectacular. So
yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Eva. In the follow-up email, I will send you the information about the museum, so those who are traveling to Frankfurt or live in the area, so that they have a chance to see the exhibition. And again, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It's very exciting to learn about these women artists, these pioneers of pioneer women really in Frankfurt.
Perhaps,
yeah.
Can I just wanted to add that we produced an exhibition catalog in German and an exhibition catalog in English. So for everybody who wants to get deeper in the subject, we had a very comprehensive catalog about all 4 artists with essays on the artist and with a lot of pictures of their works that I wanted to say.
Yeah, very good. So I'll send this link for that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so
for being
much.
invited. Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, everyone. Take good care and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.